Hello and welcome to Slapendipity, Hobos of Happy Slappy Town. This is the dating episode. I am your host, Gibby Devon, and I'm here with our contestant, Eric the Eric.
Hello.
That's all you got? You gotta go louder for the crowd, for the cheering crowd. You gotta be louder over the
I'm
crowd that's
sorry.
cheering.
Whoa! I'm ready! I'm pumped! I am
Yes.
here for... what am I here for?
You're gonna be voicing the role of Eric, the contestant. You're also going to be voicing the role of like my mother or something, and like
Okay.
be asking me questions because that's how that works. The contestant comes out and they ask the host questions. So you're gonna be asking questions as you. You're gonna be asking questions as like my mother. You're gonna be asking me questions as like a concerned citizen. And then we're gonna award points for the best answers to those questions.
But you're providing the answers, and you're the host.
But yeah, the host has the answers. That's why it works this way. I'm the host, I have the answers, you're the contestant, you have the questions. It's Jeopardy.
Okay. Alright, lay it on me. I'm ready.
Okay, well, you have the questions, so you have to start with the questions.
Right.
Right.
Okay, now it is in my experience that as of our last episode, you informed us that you had a little dating escapade to go on.
I did inform you that there would be a dating escapade to go on. That's not a question, though, so you need to get better. I award you 0 points so far.
I was doing a leading statement. You interrupted needlessly.
You were making an announcement, like Johnny, the announcer, who talks over the intercom and is like, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Hobos of Happy Slappy Town." Woo! That's the Johnny. You got to do your Johnny voice.
Okay, so we learned that you did in fact go inform us of this last episode. So my question for you then, Gibby, is, did you go on the date?
Ooh, you can play the audio stock sound effect of the crowd going, ooh.
I
There's
don't
gonna
need
be a lot
to,
of
you just did.
there's going to be a lot of audio stock sound effects, but you don't need to go and find them. I'll just make them the whole time, okay? Or you can help make them too.
Yeah.
Some clapping, some cheering, woots woots, ooh, gasps. Okay, so here is what went. We're going to do a recap, a previously on Avatar segment, where me and you had gone speed dating. And I matched with one person, and then I had this whole thing where it was taking me a long time to reach out to them, and then like our emails back and forth, it was like 2 days between each message, whatever. And so we set it up so that we went out on a date today.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Eric, you don't like it when we peel the curtain back. You don't like it when we tell them the name of our announcer and that his name is Johnny. You arguably might not even like that I'm telling them how many points you have. Currently, you have like 2 points. But I feel like I have to peel back the curtain on this. It's important to the story.
I will tentatively allow it.
See, you should have said what? You should have asked why, and then you would have gotten a question. You would have gotten points for a good question. But so I give you 0 points for that. So
I like
let me
a comeback story,
let me ask a question. What day is it?
You're not allowed to ask questions. You can only provide answers.
Okay, well, I'll answer the question. Today's Veterans Day.
Yes.
So we decided to go to a little cafe in a little town.
Okay.
And by we decided, I mean you found the spot, because I was like, Eric, I don't know where to go. She lives an hour and a half away, so I need to find somewhere that's about 40 minutes between me and her. So we both are driving about halfway, and we don't want to go to a restaurant, so it has to be like a cafe. So Eric, I need you to help me find a cafe. And you're like, okay, this one. And I'm like, dope. So we went to that one, and I get there, and I drive into the little town. And as I'm trying to make a left turn onto what I'm assuming is the main street that has the little cafe on it, there's cop cars everywhere. And I'm like, oh God, is this a dangerous neighborhood? And they're diverting traffic, and there's more sirens down there. Maybe there was a horrible accident or one of those fires that's been breaking out all over New Jersey. And so I need to make a right, and I need to loop-de-loop all the way around this town. And so my GPS goes from like, you're 1 minute away, to you're 11 minutes away. And I'm like, thank God I was already 10 minutes early. So I loop-de-loop all the way through town, and I find the cafe, and there's a little parking lot, and I park in the little parking lot, and I get out of the car, and I'm hyping myself up, because I'm like, I don't know if she's already going to be there. I don't know if I have to get the table for both of us. I don't know, should I wait outside or inside? Like, what if she's at the car already? What if I forget what she looks like? What if I forget? What if it's the wrong day? What if it's the wrong time? What if I forgot to put, like, my shoes on? Like, oh no. So I get out of the car, and I go to the street, and I go to the coffee shop, and there's these two girls in front of me, and they're also walking toward the coffee shop, and they get to the door, and one of them pulls on the door, and the door doesn't open, and the three of us stare in horror and confusion at the sign on the door that says,
Push.
Closed for Veterans Day.
Oh. Oh no! What a horrible situation you've found yourself in, with two other ladies no less. How do you ever come out of this predicament?
That's a great question. I'll give you 1 point for that. So thankfully it was a nice day. There was this little awning area, some like tables set up outside the cafe, and then a little, it was more of like a half a gazebo with a little awning. So I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, do I need to email her? Do I need to say, oh no, the cafe is broken? Like, what do I do? And I look at my clock, and it's only, we were supposed to meet at noon, and it's noon:03. And I'm like, well, I was a little late because of the traffic, because of the parade. So maybe she's late. So I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And I watch this old couple come up and do the same thing and pull on the door and try to get in, but they can't get in because it says closed on Veterans Day. And I'm looking around, and there's this lady who's like on the phone nearby who looks like a little bit like my date, but like not really. And I'm like, is that her? I'm like, no, there's no way that she'd be sitting there like actively on the phone if she was looking/waiting for me. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And I get the little like question in my head where I'm like, how long do I have to wait before I text the group chat and ask how long I have to wait for how long I should stay? Remember the story of me going to the ear doctor and I was in the waiting room? And then they were going to close on me because they didn't see me, and I had to wonder how long I should wait until I say something, and the other lady came in. Remember that?
I do remember that.
So it was that circumstance where I'm like, how long do I need to wait, and how late can she be late?
Now, at this point in time, how long have you been waiting?
I was probably having these thoughts about 15 minutes after I sat down, but at like noon:05. Because, again, I got there like 10 minutes early.
Okay. So, for about 15 minutes, you sat there contemplating what to do.
Yes, and I already pulled up a map, and I Googled cafe, and I found that there's one right down the street. It was more of a breakfast diner, but it was called a cafe. And I'm like, okay, we can get coffee or something. I don't drink coffee, but it's fine. So then she arrives, and she kind of does like an awkward, like, neck tilt in my direction to, like, verify that it's me. Now, she is wearing sunglasses, and she is wearing something that looks totally different than what she wore to the speed dating. I am looking like myself and wearing a jacket. And by jacket, I mean, like, a sweatshirt, like a hoodie. And she looks over...
Were you wearing the same clothing as you were wearing on the speed dating?
No.
Okay.
For the point of this story, we shall call her Abby. I wanted to think of a neutral name, and it starts with an A. So to me, that's a neutral name, and we don't know any Abbies. So we shall call her Abby. Do you agree to these terms?
How does the letter A mean neutral?
I was trying to think of what the first name of the alphabet would be, and I'm like Aaron, but that's not a girl's name.
Yeah, that's...
So I went with Abby. No, Aaron with an E is a girl's name. Aaron with double A's is a boy's name. We're calling her Abby.
Anyway, Abby.
So Abby comes over. I'm like, Abby? And she's like, hi. I'm like, oh my God. And I get up, and there's kind of like, it wasn't awkward, but like we did a little handshake, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. And she's like, yeah, I had to park over there. I don't know if this is good parking or not. And I'm like, oh my God, the parade. She's like, yeah, oh my God, the parade. And I go, well, bad news. The place is closed. And she's like, oh no. And I'm like, yeah, for Veterans Day, but the website didn't say they'd be closed. What a pickle. And she looks around the gazebo and says, we could talk here. And I'm like, well, I found a cafe a block away, so maybe we can go there. And if it's also closed, we can come back here to the gazebo. And she says, okay, let's go there. So we go there and we walk. And we're talking as we walk. It's not like we're walking in silence down the road to get there, but like we're chit-chatting and everything's all nice. Walking and talking. And, normal human conversation. And we get there, and then we sit in a booth, and then we talk, and whatever. I had already, eaten, kind of. I wasn't there for food, because we were just supposed to be getting coffee. So she orders a water, and I get a seltzer water, because the only thing I drink is seltzer water, and then she's looking at the coffee, and she's like, I'm going to get a coffee and french fries. And I'm like, I'm happy with my seltzer. And she's like, well, if I get french fries, will you have some? And I bite my tongue, and I say, yes, I guess I will. I just say yes, and I ended up having 5, because as you know, I do not really like eating french fries. So, it's cool, we're chilling, or whatever. There was never a moment where we, transitioned into, so, now the idle chit-chat is over, let's begin the dating questions. It was literally just, we had a conversation. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about any sort of, personal details or whatever, but I will say that many of her questions, I'd say the first 20 or so minutes of us sitting down, we were talking about the speed dating event.
Okay. Neutral ground, common territory.
Neutral ground, common territory. But she was like, I have been wondering so much, because none of my friends were there, and I know that you and your friend Eric went together, but I've been wondering so much about other people's experiences, because I only have my experience as a woman, and then my experience as as me talking to these people. So I am dying to know what you thought and the people that you talked with and what your experience was. And I'm like, oh my God, I could talk for an hour. There's a podcast. No, I didn't say that part. But no, so we ended up having a very similar conversation to the ones me and you have had. I've basically told the story of the speed dating to multiple different groups of my friends at this point. I said, all the women seem to be from that town and the men seem to all come from further away. And she said, yes, she said the exact same thing. And so I told her about a couple of the conversations I had. I'm like, yeah, I think 19 people was a little too many. I was getting kind of exhausted by the end. And, one of the last girls I talked to was clearly in her early 20s and had already decided that she wasn't interested in me. And so I kind of had to carry the conversation. And I'm just like, oh my God, can't you just pretend for 5 minutes? And she's like, oh yeah, that's crazy that she was there and she was that young, because all the guys there seem to be really, really young. And I'm like, no, I think all the women were probably in their 30s, and she was the only girl who was in her 20s. And she's like, that's so weird, because it just seems like all the guys were younger. And I'm like, that is weird. And I told her about the one lady who was probably 39, who had mentioned oh, I'm too old to be here. I was at the event with the 30s and the 40s, and now I'm here. So basically we were talking about age for a little bit, me saying, here's the young girl, here's the older woman. And she's like, it's really interesting that you you just keep saying oh, the 22, 23-year-old. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's not like I asked. I didn't ask their age. I'm not going to sit down and have this conversation and be like, oh my God, so how old are you? Just like I didn't ask how old you are, Abby. And she's like, yeah, you're the only one who didn't ask how old I was.
I didn't ask how old she was.
And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, it seemed like with every single guy I sat down with, they just had a checklist of questions, and they'd ask where I lived, what school I went to, how old I was, and it seemed like a little mental checklist. And with you, it was more of a, and she kept saying me and you. She's with you and Eric, it was more of just a normal conversation. And I was like, oh. And she's like, and she stumbled for a while over this, but she was like, almost all of the guys there had social issues. Most of the guys, and so she ended up settling on calling them neurodivergent. And she said, almost all of the guys there, besides you and Eric and this one older gentleman, didn't seem like they were good at holding a conversation, and so I had to do almost all of the work. And most of their end of the conversation was just asking me a checklist of questions, like how old I was. And I'm like, that is such a different experience than than me talking to the women. I'm like, I think most of the women who were there because they were teachers and nurses, and their employment precludes them from having interactions with men that could lead to them dating. But her analysis seemed to be that the men were there because they were on the spectrum.
Interesting. And how did you feel at this point in the date?
Well, I don't know if I said this on the show or not, but I had sort of been not planning on there being a second date with this woman before the first date even happened. But that's mostly because of just, like, lifestyle things. Like, she lives an hour and a half away. I'm just not looking to enter into a relationship right now with somebody who it would be that big of a deal to just go and see. Obviously, I just left my job. We can talk about that later. So I'm doing YouTube full time, and me and you are going to Japan in a few months, and I'm spending most of my time at home with my dog, and I'm just not looking to begin a relationship with someone who lives so far away. And so, and again, we had a very, very nice conversation at the speed dating thing, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is my future wife. She is the perfect, I didn't pull a Ted Mosby. And so going into the date, I'm like, there's realistically a 0% chance that she'll say something that will make me reconsider whether or not this is worth pursuing. Not because of who she is, but just because I don't think that it could actually logistically work. And that's ended up still being the case. I'm not going to spoil how it ends to the audience, but I still, held that belief. There's nothing she said where I'm like, oof, that's the red flag, and now I won't date her, because I went in not expecting to date her. But yeah, her telling her experience at the speed dating was so exactly what I was expecting that I thought it was funny. I'm like, yeah, all of the men there. And she even said, she's like, I was trying to, like, coach through the men how to carry on a conversation with a woman. And I'm like, that's so funny. So she told me that she was 33. And she asked me how old I was, and I said 28. And she goes, oh, so you're still a baby. And yeah, that's the one moment that I was kind of like, really? I didn't say anything, but I'm like, and maybe my perception's a little skewed because one of my employees at work was 35. Or she is 35. I'm just no longer at work. But she's 35 and she's one of my employees, and like we buddy around a lot. But like at work, I'm her boss. Outside of work, we're just buddies. But like I don't see her as like being too old for me or anything like that. She's married and not my type, so that's why I don't think of her that way. But like it's not because she's 35 and I'm 28. It's just like, yeah, we're buddy. So for her to be like, oh, I am 4 years and a few months older than you, so you're a baby. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't think that way about a 24-year-old. If I met a 24-year-old, I wouldn't be like, oh, honey, you're still a child. You're too young for me. I'd be like, no, dude, you could have a doctorate at that point. Like, what are you talking about?
I could understand being like, you're younger than I would prefer, or you're older than I would prefer. But to be like, you're a baby?
Yeah. Like, her using the word baby is what, like, kind of, and it's not like I'm like, oh man, I'm angry that she said that. I was just kind of like, what an interesting perspective to have on the 4 years between being, and I'm like almost 29, right? So the 4 years between being 29 and 33, like, what an odd 4 years to care about. Like, the 4 years between like 18 and 22, right? Like the difference between finishing high school and finishing college, like that's a crazy 4 years. Like that's probably like some of the most important I would say that is the most important 4 years of being an adult, where you do most of your growing. I say this as someone who's not 30, so I guess I don't know. Like I don't understand it, arguably.
You know what I think part of it is?
What?
Is that typically, stereotypically, even, women prefer to date older men. So if she's 33, 34, 33,
yeah.
and she wants to date someone older, that would be pushing 40 or is 40.
Yes.
So then the age difference is like 12 years, which is much more significant.
Yes. The whole so like yes, across all cultures, women typically will date men who are about 4 years older than them. Not date, marry. Like marry men who are about 4 years older than them. But that's because in most places, because most places are not the United States. In most places, people are getting married and having children younger. And so the 22-year-old woman who wants to have a baby right now wants to marry the 26-year-old man who is established and has a steady job and a career. She doesn't want to marry the 22-year-old man who's her own age who has nothing. Once you hit 30, like I guess I just don't see the big difference, right? Like if you're 30, you're either like on your path or you're not on your path. I would never look at like a 30-year-old person who's at a job and be like, man, 2 years from now, when you get that single next promotion, you're really gonna be, ahead in life. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
I think so, that like a year or two's difference by the time you hit 30 is less significant in your early 20s, when during that time frame your jumps could be higher.
Yeah, the jumps are higher and faster the younger you are. So the years are less important the older you get. And so I just think it's like, I don't know, it's crazy that age matters, because like even if it's about career, right? Like again, one of my employees working almost minimum wage, she makes a dollar more because she's technically like a trainer, but working basically minimum wage at a movie theater, and she's married, is 35, and her age tells you nothing about her career. Mm-hmm. And like I'm her boss and I'm younger than her. Imagine if, she was like, oh, well, I wouldn't date you, Devon, because you're 7 years younger than me. But like I would have a more established and stable career than she would, because I'm literally her boss. And then the other thing, and again, I'm not going to go into any personal details. I'm saying everything I'm saying as if she might listen, which obviously she wouldn't.
Unless.
But she's, I'm not going to say unemployed, but like she's been doing freelance stuff for a while and is currently not seeking freelance jobs because she's like focusing on her own writing. Mm-hmm. So like, the way that I quit my job to do YouTube and to write my books, right? Imagine if I had done that, but my YouTube channel wasn't monetized yet. Mm-hmm. So like that's the spot that she's in. And so for me, I look at that and I'm like, well, if that's your circumstance, then why would you be asking, like why does it matter what the boyfriend in the situation does? Like if you're unemployed, then it shouldn't matter if the man is. But I totally get it from her perspective, where she's like, if she is unemployed, then what she wants more than anything is a man who is extremely employed, who has much money.
I mean, I get the logic. I don't think that I don't know. I have a friend who is kind of similarly, like, does a lot of freelance work, is gonna finish up a job coming up, and then is, like, just gonna take off for the holidays coming up.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's what I want to do. I don't, my bills are relatively good and everything and stuff, and I don't need to work, so I'm just gonna enjoy myself. And it's like, yeah. I'd also be curious, because, like, it is one thing to be in that, like, weird transitionary, like, thing, but, like, you also, presumably, Abby, she, like, has a nest egg or something in this transitionary period, so that, like, I would agree with you that it doesn't matter. I mean, it would be nice, right, if the boyfriend had a job and was, like, secure and whatnot. But also, dating just makes things more expensive. Mm-hmm. So if your concern is financial, then just don't. Like, if you have your own finances secure, just don't look for a boyfriend at that time.
Yeah, I think that part of it, well, I have to guess here because she didn't say it,
Mm.
but she was mentioning how, going back to when she was at the speed dating thing and she felt like she had to like, she was doing a public service to like coach the men on how to talk to women. But like by giving them, she wasn't sitting there like, okay, little Bobby, this is how you talk to a woman. She was just like speaking to him and trying to like coach it out of him and be like, and then I did this. What do you do? Like that.
Right.
And she made a comment like, oh, these people aren't, like, they didn't react well when I said that that I wanted to settle down and have a family and a white picket fence. Like, they weren't at this spot in their life where that's what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But then she didn't ask me what I wanted. Right? Because, that is what I want. I do want kids. I do want to settle down. I do want to get married. I do want the white picket fence and the golden retriever. If she had asked me, I would have said that. But if she asked me when I wanted that, I would say minimum 5 years, which then would give her the opportunity to say, oh, well, I want it sooner than that. I'm already 33. 5 years from now, I'd be 37, 8. I'm bad at math. 7, 8, 8. So like, yeah, so that's why it won't work. Not that you're young, but that you don't want it yet. I'd say, okay. But like, she didn't ask. She made a point that the men there were too young and didn't want that, but then didn't ask.
She might have.
I thought was odd.
Sure. As you went into this date with your own thoughts and ideas about, that there's probably not going to be much to another date. She might have went in with a similar thought, so she maybe didn't care because of that. Of like, similarly, she was like, I'll go out with him just cause, but I doubt he'll say anything to rope me in.
Yeah, well, so verbally, I'll cut to the end, and we might end up circling back around if I think of things to talk about later. But it was over, and we left, and walking back to the cars, and was like, oh my god, it was so nice seeing you, get home safe, I hope you have a good, rest of your day, drive well, etc. And she was just like, oh, it was so nice, but like, I'm sorry, but like, you're just too young for me. And I was like, oh, that's okay, I hope you do well, it was good seeing you, etc., and then leave. So, like, I guess that, like, the thing that made up her mind was just the number, just the age. So, going into it, when she made the agreement to go on the date and then drove there and then we sat down, then we started talking, etc., until she asked how old I was, theoretically, she didn't have a yes or a no in mind. But then she heard 28, and then, like, that was her answer. So, like, you were just saying, like, oh, just like you, Devon, she was going in with certain expectations that probably wouldn't be met. I'm like, well, if her whole thing was age, then she technically didn't know until she sat down.
Yeah, but she could have also just went in with the idea that, yeah, he's probably younger because all of the men were younger, so he's probably younger.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not. Who's to... Unless you sculpt open their mind, how will we know?
How will we know? How will we ever know what women say or think? That's a great question, Eric. I'll give you 5 points for that one. Now you're at 8 points. You're the best contestant we've had on this show.
Did you overall have fun?
Yes, 100%. Like, again, it was an excellent conversation. It was really, really, fun and nice to hear about her perspective on the whole thing. She was like, I wish that I had, I'd been able to convince my friends to go. The other women there were so, like, laughing and having fun with their group, and, like, they wanted all the women to exchange numbers so we could all meet up later or, like, go out, but I was just exhausted and I wanted to go home. She had the same kind of thing that we did, where we're like, 19 is too many, and also it was getting hot. And also apparently the person she spoke to last kind of, like, really annoyed her. She made a comment that he was probably retired. And I'm like, but it was like only 20s and 30s. And she's like, this man was definitely in his 50s or 60s. I'm like, that's gross. And she's like, that is gross. Yeah. So she's like, so I didn't go out with like all the other girls and like make friends with them or whatever. But she was like, I want to convince my friends to go next time. But then I told them what it was like. And then they're like, well, why would we want to go to that? And I'm like, I understand your pain.
Yeah.
the whole time, like, we were, like, dancing. I don't know how if she was, but, like, dancing around, like, yeah, if I'm not going to be like, I'm already planning with Eric and one of our other friends to go to the next one. Because, like, I'm not going to say that to her if we're currently on a
then
date,
she can
right?
go with us.
Yeah, I'm like, haha. Like, yeah, next time I go, I'm going to do this. Because that's, immediately implying that, like, this date is worthless because I'm planning on still going. So, like, I had that in my mind, like, forefront of my mind in not saying that and just kind of wording my answers carefully to avoid saying that. Yeah, she made a comment about how she's like, oh, she said that, like, not in these words, but that one of my green flags was that I was there with a friend.
Interesting.
And, during the course of our conversation, we talked about multiple things. I mentioned how I went to the mall yesterday, which is a story I can tell later unrelated to dating. But I told her the story that I went to the mall yesterday to watch a movie with some friends. And then I told her about how me and you had roped one of our other friends to, like, maybe going next time. And she's like, yeah, like, you're really well-spoken, like, you can carry a conversation, and, you have friends. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, like, yeah. She's like, yeah, like the other guys, like, didn't have that. And I'm like, is the standard for men like, is that the standard? Is that
on the
low?
Ground.
And she's like, some of the other guys, like, so she had, like, done dating apps before. Like, she's, like, dated for a while. Mm-hmm. She's like, a lot of other guys have, like, online friends. And I'm like, oh, I have real friends. And I hate saying that because, like, I know a lot of people who have very, very serious online friendships that, like, really matter to them. I know someone who met someone, like, dated online for years and then ended up moving in together. Like, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with having that kind of friendship or that's not real friends, but, like, I don't have any online friends. I have some fans of the podcast and my YouTube show that I talk to a lot on Twitter, or, like Sophie over email, right? Like, I'm not gonna say that she's my friend, but, like, that's someone I talk to on the internet. Or some of my other YouTube peers who we hit each other up in Twitter DMs, and we're talking about, like, FNAF because we make FNAF videos. Or there's one artist in the Christian community who I'm very, 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 very friendly with. Her name's Helena. And, like, oh, I love Helena. Like, Helena's great, and, we talk all the time, or we used to. So, like, yeah, Helena's really friendly, and then our artist Mel I'm really friendly with. But, like, I'm not gonna... These people aren't they're not my online friends. And I've never really had an online friend. And so I guess I just don't understand the culture, like, the feelings. Like, I don't know what an online friend would, like, be like. I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, I'm saying that because I haven't had one, I don't understand it.
Okay, I think... I mean, it sounds like, really, it's just the relationships you described just now, but just more intimate, and not in the sexual way or anything, just like you would just be closer to those people, and, like, I don't know, talk about more generic things, where, like, the common ground aspects that you share is not the only things you discuss, and you make each other part of your lives on a more regular basis.
But how do you make them part of your life if they're not there?
You talk to them online, or give them a phone call, or play video games together.
So, like, me and you've had this conversation off the podcast, but I think that, one of the healthy, normal aspects of being friends and, like, hanging out is, let's say, a scenario where, we get together and we chill in the hangout spot, and everyone's on their phone, or two people are playing card game in the corner, and the other two are lounging on the couch. One of them's half watching a TV show, and the other's taking a nap. Or 3 people are playing Jenga, and then the 4th and 5th person are playing Uno, right? Like, you're all hanging out, you're all together, you're all vibing, you're hanging out, literally just hanging out, but it's not to do something. You didn't gather because you all want to watch the same movie. You didn't gather because you want to play a video game. You didn't gather because you wanted to play Cards Against Humanity. It's like, you gathered because you're friends. And you can chill, and any topic of conversation can come up, and you can talk about that, or any game. Oh my god, we're all going to play this, or half of us will play this, and half of us will play that. Or we're just going to sit and talk, or we're all going to take a nap. Or, oh my god, let's get some food. So, like, I guess I just don't... Because I think that that's such a big, important marker of friendship, I don't comprehend... Just because, like, that's physically impossible if you're only friends with someone, like, over Discord.
I'd say the intentions are the same, though, right? Just because you're not able to physically share the same space, you can go into a Discord call and just be on the phone together. And you could even play different video games and just, like, you're not physically present with each other by being in the call, but you kind of are. Your presence is being shared with each other by being in a phone call. And what you're describing is sounding like social play, like with cats, of like, they'll just be in the same room as you, and they won't do the same thing, but they'll just hang out, and to them that's, spending quality time. And I think you can do a similar thing online. But also, I think what you described of like, oh, we're just gonna hang out to hang out is kind of like either highly group dynamic based or is more so an age thing. Like, as the older people have gotten, at least in my experience, right, when everyone has their own lives and branches out and stuff, like when you hang out with your group of friends, there usually is a reason behind it, right? Like, there's a group of friends where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a murder mystery, totally. Yeah. And then the murder mystery runs late because we're all just talking for an hour or two, and then, some people are cooking, and then, okay, 3 hours later we're gonna start the murder mystery. And then, you do that and you finish it. And then you, like, go back to talking and hanging out. But I think the, like, we're just gonna pick a hangout spot and we're all just gonna vibe is just less of a thing that the older you get and the more that third places are shut down.
Third places. We need more.
Yeah. Really
what I would say, this is a quick pivot, and I know that you disagree, and our audience is going to disagree. I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to anger everyone.
Oh, no.
But that's why drinking's bad. If you and your buddies, when you all get together, if you have to drink to have fun, you're doing friendship wrong.
No, I don't disagree.
I feel like people might be feel judged for me saying that. Anyway, moving on.
Well, you shouldn't have to feel forced to drink.
No, I don't mean forced to drink. I mean people who...
Oh, hang out only to drink?
No, it's like, it's not fun unless you're drinking.
Oh, yeah,
the idea that, like, oh, drinking just makes hanging out more fun. I'm like, no, your friends are just boring.
Lols.
That's my take. And that's not directed at anyone in particular. Like, when we get together, or when, like, our various intersecting groups of friends get together, like, sure, there will be alcohol, and, like, we'll drink, or some people drink, some people won't, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not calling out, like, oh my god, every time Robert comes over, I don't know why I keep going to Robert, every time Robert comes over, he's always getting smashed. Like, no, that's just Robert, he's chilling. I mean, when you're having a murder mystery night, and then they break out the wine bottles, and they're like, oh my god, wine, yas. I'm like, yeah, but the murder mystery is fun, too.
Well, yeah, and then it's just how people have fun in the different...
Yeah, and they're wrong. Anyway, what I'm saying is that when she said, all these guys seem to only have online friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I just had that big disclaimer because I don't want them to feel like I'm judging them for only having online friends. It's just that I don't understand that because I don't have those.
Mm.
But I'm like, yeah, what I said to her was like, I totally understand why that's like a red flag to you, but I want you to know that like, I do play video games, like, because she said like, oh, they only have online friends and just play video games. And I'm like, me and Eric play video games and, you know, watch anime and like all that other nerd stuff. We just also do normal things. like I literally said that to her.
How'd that go?
It was fine. Like, she didn't care. Like, her main point was like, the men that are available to her at these gatherings, at the speed dating, are not people that she was interested in besides me. She says that she did, she says that she matched with one other person. She didn't bring up if she went on the date with him, she didn't say she matched. She said that she like circled yes. She didn't say if she went on the date or if she's going to or didn't or whatever. Maybe it already happened. Maybe they're already together and this was a formality. Oh my god, I'll never know.
It was me.
It was you. No, I know it wasn't you because I know you circled no on her. But yeah, so she was very much like wistful at the idea, at the notion that there could be an event like this one where the men weren't just neats and old retired men creeping on 20-year-olds, and that could actually basically she's like, she wishes that the people there really were looking for what she was looking for. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It sounds like she wanted a certain type of man to be there.
Yeah.
Or like a type of man in the same position as her, is like, I'm ready to settle down and my career's semi-stable at least, and I just haven't happened to have found anyone yet. As opposed to the selection that she got, which is more like scattered.
I think like my preconceived notion of speed dating would be for people who are like, in my mind, the only people who go speed dating are Ted Mosby.
Lols,
the only men,
no.
the only men who go speed dating are Ted Mosby, because it's such like, it's in person. You have to go out of your way to do it. If you just want like a random fling or whatever, you're gonna use dating apps, right? Like, to go speed dating, you got to be like in it to win it, and I'm sure that was also her assumption, and that's just not what it ended up being. And so I was surprised by that, and she was surprised by that.
That's fair. I think that is kind of a, I don't want to say foolish, maybe like ignorant thought process, because I don't disagree that like people looking for flings would use dating apps, but like just the amount of ways to meet people is so few that like anyone is willing to try anything at this point. Like, if someone wants, like, a hookup or dating or whatever, like, dating apps are garbage. No one approaches anyone in person.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
like,
she brought that up, too.
There's not that many options for any form of, like, flings or long-term commitments or medium things. Like, everyone has to use the same stuff.
That was exactly her conclusion, where she was basically like, you know, I assumed that the men who would be there would be the Ted Mosby types. But because there's no way for anyone to meet anyone in any other situation, and she's like, people don't just go up to others at the bar anymore. The only way that anyone can meet anyone is speed dating. So that's why now everyone goes. So like, you know, the preconceived notion of the people who would typically do that kind of thing is wrong, because there are no third places for normal people to meet, so now normal people have to go speed dating.
Yes. Well, and the other thing too that, like, both, you know, lest we leave it out, is like college and work. The amount of people I know that got together from college specifically, I think is a huge thing of just like, it does so much of the work for you because you're both going to be within, walking distance of each other. You're both going to have a rough idea of who this person is just based off their degree and blah, blah, blah. Same thing with work.
I mean, we know works can be a little different because there's some places where like you can't/shouldn't date coworkers.
Sure.
But like, we obviously know a lot of people who are either currently like still, quote unquote, still with, or ended up marrying like their high school or their college relationship. But like the further we get from there, like that's it's too late, right? Like it's a binary state. Me and you are not going back to college, so that's not going to be a thing.
Right. Like once you get out of college, the harder it gets. Unless, I mean, you could go back for your doctorate or master's or whatever, and then there's a chance, I suppose, but like if you have no intention on going back to college / don't.
Well, just because
you're just off in the wild.
Yes, off in the YouTube wilds. Someone asked me, so okay, do you have any questions? Any more questions about the dating? Because there was a lot of other stuff that happened this week.
I don't think so.
Okay, if you come to any more as we go, we can finish up.
Circle back.
With those. Circle back.
Sure.
So it was my last day at work this week.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday was my last day. One of my employees asked me if I was going to be going to VidCons, and I was like, I haven't thought about it. Like, I don't know, but like to them, it's like, oh, you're a YouTuber. That means you're going to go to VidCon, and I'm like, I guess I'd never really realized that from the outside, that's how people think that it works. But yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, so I had my last couple days. My last day was pretty slow, so I had a lot of time to like
be wistfully looking out the window.
Yeah, well, no, wistfully looking in the window, just walking around like it's a normal day. It's like I don't want anything special. I just want today to be a day, and then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna hang up my hat, metaphorically, and just walk out into the night and not come back. And so when the shift ended and everyone went home, there was the manager who was there closing, so it was just me and him. We have these temperature guns that we got for COVID because we had to like point them at people's foreheads and take their temperature before their shift could start during COVID.
Right.
So I snuck one of those out of the filing cabinet and I put it in my back pocket. And so I had that in my back pocket for like the last hour of my shift.
Okay.
The general manager had left around 6 p.m. and he was like, hey, when you leave, make sure you give the closing manager like your keys and your card and stuff. I'm like, okay. So everyone's gone. It's time for me to leave. And I go to the office and he's sitting there counting the money. And he's like, hey, it's been an honor to work with you. And I'm like, it's been an honor to work with you too. And I reach in my pocket and I go, here's my keys. I reach over to my shirt and say, here's my badge. I reach into my back pocket and I go, here's my gun.
Oh my gosh. No.
I've told this story several times. Nobody likes it. I think it's funny.
I'm 50-50 on it. It's okay.
He chuckled. I don't know if he thought it was that funny, but he chuckled. So I handed in all my stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and take one last walk around the building, and then I'm going to head out. And he said, okay. So there, it's a movie theater, so there's still movies going. There are customers in their seats watching their movies, but the staff is all gone. So I go, and I walk behind the bar, and I walk into the kitchen, and I go into the back corner, and I run my hand along the railing, and I open the microwave one last time, and I look over at the thermometer I used to have to shove into everything, and I'd turn on the sink and then turn it off, And then I take one last paper towel from the paper towel roll, and I go to the old popper machine, and I dump it one last time. There's nothing in it. I just do the motion of dumping it one last time. And I stare longingly, lovingly at the butter dispenser, and I take a deep breath, and I step out of the kitchen. And then I step into Theater 2, and then I walk up and down Theater 2, and I step into Theater 3, and I walk up and down Theater 3, and then there's people in Theater 5, so I can't go into Theater 5, but it's fine, because as a customer, I'll be able to go into Theater 5 anyway. So basically, I kind of skip all those, and then I go to the special upstairs area where the projectors are, and I slowly walk up the stairs one last time, and I slowly walk all the way to the short end, like there's, the stairs are in the middle of the hallway, so I go the short distance, I go all the way to that end, and I look around, and I'm like, wow, that screwdriver is still there from when I had to fix the projector 2 years ago. And wow, there's a box of paperwork with my handwriting on it that says March 2020. And wow, there's those batteries that I had to grab last week. The box is still open. I wonder who the next person who's going to need batteries is. And I turn around and I walk down the hallway, and there's a piece of trash on the ground, and I bend over and I pick it up and I throw it in the garbage, and I'm like, one last time cleaning up here. And then I go and I slowly walk down the long hallway, and I take a step, and I take a step, and every time something passes me by in my peripheral vision, I'm like, wow, that's the last time I'll ever see that again. I take another step, and I'm like, wow, now that's gone. And now that's gone. And now that's gone. I get about halfway down the hallway, and I'm like, instead of sitting here walking and thinking like, wow, I'm never going to see the Theater 10 projector again, I should instead be looking at the Theater 11 projector for the next 3 steps as I pass it. And so I do that, and I keep walking. I get to the end of the hallway, and there's a door, and there's a light switch, and there's a second set of stairs. And so I get there, and I dramatically turn around, and I stare down the long, long hallway like it's a visual representation of the journey that I'd been on my 5 years of employment there. This long, long journey, full of all the different theaters that you can see, all at once. And I dramatically flick the light switch off and close my eyes at the same time, so that my vision is stuck there forever, looking down back at that hallway. And then I turn, and then I walk down that second set of steps. Now it's the last time I'll ever be down those steps. At the end of that hallway is a door that can only be opened from the inside. So once I go through there will be no more coming back. Basically, there's 2 sets of stairs going upstairs. One can go up and down, one can only go down. So I open that door, and I'm like, the moment this door closes, I'm locked out forever. And the door closed, and I was locked out forever. And then I went, and I looked in the employee break room, and in all the different areas, and the lockers, and all this stuff, and there's a little whiteboard. And the manager who had left a couple days before me had written a nice message on the whiteboard. I'm like, I need to write something on the whiteboard. And so I'm like, I don't know what to say. And then the perfect words came to me. And Eric, do you know what the perfect words are?
I do not know what the perfect words are. Will you tell me what the perfect words are?
Well, you do know them, because it's the words that I end all of my videos with. So you should know those, right? Because you watch all my videos. How do I end all my videos, Eric? Every single one. What do I say?
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
No, I said never lose sight of the things that are important to you. Because I end every single one of my videos by saying be nice to each other in the comments, consider supporting the creators you admire, and never lose sight of the things that are most important to you.
That's sweet.
And so I wrote that on the board, and I'm like, aw, because so there's messages written on the whiteboard that have been there for over 2 years because we just never do anything with it. And I'm like, aw, it would be so sweet if like someone saw that and they recognized it as my sign off. That's so cute. I took a few days ago. I took a USB, and there's a bunch of pictures and videos from our time there. There's only I picked like 20 specific ones, and I put them on the USB. And it's just like, oh, here's Billy, like in his Halloween costume from 3 years ago. And oh, here's Tana, the time that she had to like stand on top of the bar to reach something, and she's giving the camera a thumbs up. And oh my god, it's little Robert, the guy who I've used in 3 of my stories. He's making his first batch of popcorn. And so I took these pictures, I put them on a USB, and I hid them somewhere in the building. And I took the label maker, and I wrote, like, for future employees. So I hope that one day someone finds it, and they take it and they look at it and they go, wow, look at all these people from 2019 to 2024. And then maybe they'll add to it and they'll hide it. But I wrote a little note. I wrote a little hint as to where it's hidden in the break room in marker, dry erase marker. I wrote dry erase marker. So I hid where I put the hint, but the hidden hint will lead you to the hiding place. So I made a little treasure hunt.
Okay.
And then I left. But that's not actually what happened. So I'm leaving, and I'm going back to the manager's office, because that's where my coat is. So I go to the manager's office, I walk inside, manager man says goodbye for the last time for real this time, and I say goodbye, and then he hugs me, and I get my coat, and I open the door, and I leave for the last time out of the manager's office. And there's a customer there. And she goes, excuse me, do you work here? Now, if this was a sitcom, what I would have said was no, and then dramatically turn and walk away as the sad music played, because symbolically I didn't work there anymore. But realistically, I technically was still on the clock. And so I said yes, and she says, can I have a refund? And I said, okay. And so I had to go up to the register and log back in and give her her refund because she never got her chicken nuggets. And then go back to the office and open the door. And again, I had literally just left and said goodbye to this manager and be like, I just did a refund. Here's the receipt. Okay, bye for real this time.
Yeah. You wanted a nice, sappy moment filled with meaning and depth, and
a
no.
customer ruined it. A customer ruined it one last time.
Gosh, leave it to the customer.
No, it was actually very, very nice, where I'm like, yep, I said my goodbye, and now this is the last time I'll help a customer, and I will never forget this story because it's so funny. Literally, like, the amount of times that I'm trying to, like, do something important and a customer's like, can you give me a refund? And now it happened. It was literally the very last thing to happen to me. But yeah, no, that was nice, and then I left. I made a playlist of meaningful songs to my employment time there. I think there's like 12 songs on the playlist. So I listened to it on the car ride over, like, to work that day, which is, I made a playlist of like 12 songs, but I knew I'd only be able to listen to a couple. So, like, I planned on listening to like half on the way there and then half on the way home. And then that's just not how it worked out because there's like a detour or whatever, whole thing. So as I'm going around walking throughout the building, I'm listening to this playlist. But I have it on shuffle.
Okay.
So, and again, I could list the songs, but they're like they're not important unless you know, right? Like, so like Eric, one of the songs is Come On Eileen.
Sure.
Right, because like and like that has to be there. That's an important song for the history of our employment time there. So one of the songs on the playlist that was the last one, but again, it's not really the last one because it's on shuffle, is the song Closing Time. I also had like Time of Your Life by Green Day, which is just another song about like leaving places. And then there's a song by the Wallows called Remember When. And then most importantly, there's a song called Piggy Plum Pie by the Webkins.
Yeah.
Right. So some of these songs are like meaningful to the scenario that is happening. And then some of the songs are from funny events that happened during our employment there. Right. Like Come On Eileen and Piggy Plum Pie are just from us working there. Whereas Closing Time and Time of Your Life are just like songs about leaving somewhere. So it's on shuffle and it's going through, and occasionally like I have to pause it because like there's customers, or like when I had to help the lady I paused it or whatever. So then I leave and I help out the lady and I put the earbuds on and I go and I walk to my car and I turn and I take a picture of the building for one last time and I get in my car. And my car is Bluetooth, so when I step in my car and take out my headphones, the music starts playing over the radio. And the song that's playing ends, and then as I put it in reverse and I start driving through the parking lot, Closing Time starts playing.
Mm.
And it syncs up perfectly where the music goes, and then I reach the edge of the parking lot, and there's a stop sign, and I pause, and there's no cars coming, and so then I make my turn out of the parking lot, and the moment I pass the stop signs when the lyrics kick in, and that's when I started crying.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fine. And then you pulled over because you were sobbing and couldn't drive properly?
There were no other cars on the road, and it was like 25 miles an hour for at least the first 5 minutes of the drive. So I just made my way. I just blew my nose and made my way through it, and then we were all good.
No.
But yeah, like I felt it coming on a couple times during the day, and I'm like, maybe I will make it, and then I didn't.
Well, you were like half of an inch away from making it to the finish line.
I think going home and falling asleep would be the finish line.
Oh, you think so? I would say like once you are like out of that last familiar turn for the stop sign type of thing. When you've left the property, you know. If you cry in the middle of the way home, Wow.
Yeah, one of our employees, the 35-year-old woman who we like, she gave me flowers. That was nice. Mr. Bossman wrote me a nice card and gave me a Lego set as a parting gift, and I said okay. Like very, very sweet. It's just like I'm like I feel like I shouldn't tell people that. That's just really weird. Out of context.
What, your boss doesn't give you Lego sets?
It's like when people, my gift for retirement was a Lego set. I'm like, that's based, but also people might judge me.
Who cares?
So yeah, that was super nice. None of that is the story I wanted to tell you.
Okay.
We're going on a little long, so I'll try to do this quickly. But for the last couple weeks, I've been working on a project.
Uh-huh.
And that project was originally that I wanted to go to the 7 employees who are currently working at the theater. So, because we might have some new people listening to this episode and none of the old episodes. Me and Eric used to work in a movie theater. We started working there the day it opened. And then he left because he got a gooder job and didn't want to be there anymore. And then I left to do YouTube full time. He left like 2 years ago. I left last week. So on the week I was leaving, there were 7 people still employed in the building who had been there on day 1. So there were 7 of us who had been there for 5 years. And that includes, COVID and, there's this one manager no one liked. And so like when he got fired, we were all clapping and like, oh my God, like, right. The shared trauma, like these people aren't your friends, but like you all went through a lot of stuff together.
You trauma bonded together.
Yeah. So me and then one of the other managers, we were both leaving, and she had also been there since day 1. So we joined on day 1, and then we both were promoted to managers, and then we're both leaving the same week. And that's because I was leaving because of YouTube, and then she's like, well, if he's leaving, that means I'm going to be stuck with the 3rd manager, and I don't want to do that, so I guess it's time for me to go too.
Dang.
So I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that was basically it. So I wanted to put together a video of the 7 people who'd been there the whole time saying something that they loved about their time there. And so it'd just be a little video of, Robert saying, I love everyone's smiling faces. And then it cuts to Sarah and her going, I love the song that the general manager hums when we open. And then Tony will be like, I love the free movies. And you get those 7 and then go to the people who we're still friends with. Like you, like we're all still in contact with you. And then our other buddies who, we met there at the theater who we're all still friends with. And then on her last day, I projected it on the screen. I said, hey, come to theater too. I took her and I took our general manager and I put it on the big screen. And so we watched these videos. But as I was going and as I was reaching out to people to be like, hey, can you be part of this? They were like, well, you can't just get the 7 of us. You got to get like, oh my God, did you get Tiffany? Oh my God, did you get Abby? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, did you get Aaron? I'm like, well, that kind of goes beyond the purpose of the project. I'm like, no, you got to get them. I'm like, okay. Do you know what the final count of employees that I got was in my video?
23.
72.
Jeez.
So me and then a network of people. We got a lot of people who were currently employed there. This whole thing took 2 weeks, which is not a lot of time. Basically, like there were literally people who I didn't have shifts overlapping with during this time, which is why I didn't get everyone who currently works there. But reaching out to people, and the people who currently work there, we got 72 current and past employees to be involved and say something they loved about working there. And some of them were silly, like, I love popcorn. And then some of them were incredible, like, I love the day that I was really sad and then I went to my favorite manager, Erin, and then asked her what to do, and she gave me the best advice. So I took them, and again, it was this whole process of, oh my god, we just got 5 more, and then a couple days later, oh my god, Bobby finally responded to me, we can add him. Oh my god, Craig just got back to me, we can add him. And I took and I put the messages in order of least profound to most profound. And then that's what I projected on the thing. And so then a couple days later, I left, and that was my last day, and I went home. And that night, I got the last couple people to send their things in. And so my first day not working there, I spent most of my time at my computer finishing editing that video. I was home alone because I had to take care of the dogs because my mother and brother were out doing things. But I'm sitting at my computer, taking care of the dogs in my free time, doing the video. And like just before midnight, it's like 10 or 11 p.m. I'm finally finished and it's rendering and it's all good. And I added subtitles because some of them were kind of hard to understand, which took a while. Adding subtitles to any video is impossible and I hate it. So I added the subtitles and then I email our old general manager. And I'm like, hey, here's my parting gift to you. And I sent him the video of the 72 testimonials with I made sure to put everyone's name next to their face in case he forgot, and subtitles for everything they said. And he then just sent me the sweetest email back, and he was basically like, oh my god, like, I don't even know how you found and went and got all these people, and like, you're, the fact that, the job obviously must have meant a lot to me and then to the other manager who left, like, the only reason that you'd put this together is because obviously it meant so much to you and to everyone, and like, oh my god, this is amazing and beautiful. I'm like, yeah, thank you for all the long years of work and whatever. But the important thing that stood out to me and that meant a lot to me is that in doing this project, me and the network of people who reached out to others to get their testimonials spoke to people who we haven't spoken to in 5 years, and like rekindled old conversations, and like talked to people we hadn't talked to in a while. I think I may have mentioned this last week. I told part of the story last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh yeah, I reached out to my ex-girlfriend, and like now that the whole thing is over, it's like the most magical, important part is the reconnections that were made because of it. And I just think that that's magic.
Wow.
Wow.
What a wonderful time that was had by all.
It was had by all.
But now it's closing time.
Open up your doors.
Time to pack your bags.
All over all the boys and girls. And let you out into the worlds.
Time of your life.
Yeah. Oh, I will say during the date, Abby said, she said the word serendipity twice.
Lols.
Lols, bye everyone.
Bye.